The following program contains graphic images. Viewer discretion is advised.
It's the end of March 1995. Typical weather in Los Angeles with lows in the 50s and highs occasionally into the 80s. Madonna's hit song Take a Bow plays on the radio. Forrest Gump dominates the Oscars, winning 6 statues, including Best Picture. There's a rabies outbreak in Texas. Striking Major League Baseball players offer to end their 232-day strike, and the world loses 2 music icons, Tejano singer Selena and gangsta rap artist Eazy-E, who dies of AIDS. Reverend Jesse Jackson visits O.J. Simpson in jail and says a prayer for him and the Simpson family. Meanwhile, on the 9th floor of the L.A. County Courthouse, 2 other families, the Browns and the Goldmans, pray for justice in the murders of their loved ones, as the People versus O.J. Simpson continues. The 10th week of the O.J. Simpson trial signals a change in direction for the prosecution. Marcia Clark goes after her own witness, Kato Kaelin, after he becomes evasive on the witness stand. It's a stunning move for the lead prosecutor as the People's case continues to be blunted by the defense. I'm Roger Cossack, and this is OJ25.
Ms. Clark, you may resume. Excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Kaelin, good morning.
I think Kato Kaelin was the best witness for television. He was ridiculous and charming and hard to figure out.
Ms. Clark, you may resume with your direct examination.
Mr. Kaelin, you told Mr. Shapiro that the defendant's demeanor on June the 12th was the same as always. Do you recall saying that?
At different points of that day, I said that he was tired at one point. And in the afternoon, he was conversational.
You remember testifying earlier that Mr. Simpson was upset during that day?
About a statement that was made. A little bit upset, yes.
Question by Mr. Shapiro. Did you see anything unusual in his feelings because he couldn't spend as much time with his daughter that he would have liked? No, it was, he just said it. It wasn't unusual. Was he angry? No, not when he said that. Was he agitated? No. You recall giving that testimony?
Yes.
And yet you just testified that the defendant was upset when he said that.
What I have trouble with is the upset, the word of what the range is of upset and angry. But yeah, there was like upsetness in the voice.
Are you confused about the meaning of the word upset, Mr. Kaelin? Is that the problem?
No, I know what you mean.
He wasn't really believable because you kind of got the feeling that he was afraid to testify.
Was he upset or wasn't he when he talked about Nicole and her tight dresses?
No, not real upset.
He was brought on as a prosecution witness, and he ended up being a hostile witness for the prosecution because they weren't getting what they really wanted out of him.
I'm going to ask leave of the court to take this witness as a hostile witness.
When an attorney calls a witness to the stand, they have to ask open-ended questions. But if that witness is not cooperating and not answering your questions, you can have them declared a hostile witness. And what that really means is now you don't have to ask those open-ended questions. You can ask leading questions like you do on cross-examination.
The defendant was upset when he spoke about Nicole wearing the tight dresses at the recital.
Yes.
Now, is it your testimony today that he was more upset about Sydney than he was about Nicole wearing the tight dresses?
Yes.
But that was not your testimony before, was it, Mr. Kaelin?
No.
When it became apparent that Mr. Kaelin was going to be treated as a hostile witness, again, it started giving me the inference that he's just not giving her the answers that she assumed they had already agreed to beforehand. And all of this stuff leads to me having reasonable doubts as to what he was talking about or the testimony that he was giving.
Earlier, you testified that he was relaxed and nonchalant when he spoke about Sydney at the recital. Isn't that true?
That's what I remember, yes.
And isn't it also true that you testified previously during this trial that he was more upset about Nicole wearing the tight dresses than he was about not being able to see Sydney. Isn't that true?
Yes.
And now you're changing that testimony. Is that what you're doing, sir?
Yes.
Would you describe what you would mean when you were saying somebody is upset?
Nicole didn't let me see Sydney. I wanted to see my daughter. I want to see her. And, oh, boy. I don't know, Kato. I don't know how they can wear these tight outfits. If they're going to be grandmas one day, I mean, can they wear those?
Was that the tone of voice?
Actor, sorry. More of a...
Having spoken to Kato in the years since, I believe Kato Kaelin was afraid to say what he really felt. I really do.
Are you here to tell the truth?
Yes.
Are you doing your best to tell the truth?
Yes.
Court TV producers kept thousands of pages of notes during the trial. On this day, one observation describes Kato's no-win situation.
Kato Kaelin was trying to please Clark by giving her the answers she wanted. I thought the same thing with Shapiro. This was a witness who wanted desperately to give both lawyers the answers they wanted. He was clearly not enjoying being controversial or being thought of as a liar.
He liked O.J. Simpson, but he was also Nicole's friend. And I think he believed that O.J. Simpson committed this crime, but he was terrified to be a prosecution witness.
Isn't it true that when O.J. Simpson said to you, "Thank God I was with you," that he seemed to be relieved?
Testimony.
Sustained. The first question.
Has he ever asked you to create an alibi for him or lie for him?
No.
Mr. Kaelin, who has approached you?
Everyone. Every tabloid.
How much money have you been offered?
A lot. Close to $1 million, I guess.
Have you accepted any money from any tabloids for your story?
No.
They dumped every human being who knew really nothing about the case onto the witness stand and created characters like Kato Kaelin.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the trial and opinion before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Sir, as of June the 12th, can you tell us where you were employed?
I was employed for Town and Country Limousine.
Did you have an order for a pickup on that date for the evening to go to the airport?
Yes, I did.
What was your order?
My order was to pick up Mr. Simpson at 360 Rockingham.
At what time?
10:45.
How were you able to locate which house on Rockingham was the defendant's as you drove up Rockingham?
There was addresses painted on the curb.
The limo driver, Alan Park's testimony stands out significantly to me, and to the point where I can almost recall his testimony.
At the time that you were looking at that location, the address on the curb, did you see a car parked in that location?
No, I didn't.
You see that white Bronco in this photograph, sir?
Yes.
Was that white Bronco there at the time you drove by at about 10:22?
I didn't see it.
And you were looking at that curb, were you not?
Yes.
When you saw the address on the curb, what had happened next? What did you do?
I was driving a little bit quick, so by the time I saw it, I noticed that was the house, and I should turn around. As I got a little bit farther, I noticed another side street, Ashford. It was around 10:39. I drove up to the Rockingham gate, looking down the Rockingham driveway, and pulled up to the Ashford gate.
Did you notice any white Ford Bronco parked to either side of that Ashford gate?
No, I didn't.
Can you tell us what time it was?
That was at 10:40. When I got out of the car, and there was an intercom at the gate, and I was using that intercom to buzz the house.
He said the house was dark, no one was there.
The limo driver is ringing or calling inside for him to come down to the limo for 14 minutes.
Did something attract your attention?
Yes, a white male walked from behind the house area on a pathway, and he had a flashlight in his hand, and he stopped before he got to the driveway.
And that person that you're describing, have you since learned what his name is?
Yes.
And what is his name?
Kato.
Now, at the same time that you saw Kato Kaelin in the side yard, did you see anything else?
I saw a figure come into the entranceway of the house, just about where the driveway starts.
Could I ask the court to ask the defendant to stand for a moment, please?
Thank you.
You seen the defendant, Mr. Park?
Yes.
Can you tell us if that appears to be the size of the person that you saw enter the front entrance of the house at Rockingham?
Old.
Yes, around the size.
He saw him sometime around 11 o'clock.
And moving in what direction, sir?
Into the house, or towards the house.
Could you tell whether that person was coming from the Rockingham driveway or from the area of the garage, from the south pathway?
No, I couldn't.
How long after that person entered the house, the front entrance, did the lights go on downstairs?
Just seconds. That's when I got back up and out of the car and rang the intercom. This time there was an answer, which was Mr. Simpson. He told me that he overslept and he just got out of the shower and he'd be down in a minute. I got back into the car and waited another 20, 30 seconds and before Mr. Kaelin came over and opened the gate.
Did you pull into the driveway after Mr. Kaelin opened the gate?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember if he asked you a question?
Yeah. He asked me if I felt an earthquake.
Oh, right. Sustained.
Sustained
Right.
what?
It's hearsay.
The front door was open, and there were a couple of bags on the porch.
Do you remember what kind of bags were on the porch?
Black duffel bags.
At that point, I concluded in my mind, I'm saying, well, there we go. That explains why he was standing at the front door. He just brought the bags out and sat them there.
Can you tell us, sir, approximately how long it was between the time you saw the 6-foot, 200-pound person dressed in all dark clothing go into the house and the time you saw Mr. Simpson come out the front entrance?
It was somewhere around 5 and 6 minutes.
And when you had the conversation with Kato at the front entrance, sir, did you happen to notice whether he had anything in his hands?
Yeah, he had a flashlight.
What happened next?
He carried down a what looked like a Gucci bag with him that folded in half. Seemed to be some type of garment bag. He came out and set that on the ground next to the bags, from what I remember. And from there, I picked it up and put that into the trunk.
Did something ever occur with the duffel bag that you saw in the front entrance when you first pulled up?
Yes, as Mr. Simpson was walking by one of the times, I asked him where he'd like those bags, in the trunk or inside the car. He asked me to put them inside the car.
And did you do that, sir?
Yes, I did. There was another bag on the driveway.
What kind of bag was that?
It was another, seemed to be small duffel bag. We were standing around the car, and Mr. Simpson came back out. Kato offered to go get the bag, and he said, no, that's okay, I'll get it. I don't know if he put it inside or in the trunk.
Mr. Cochran.
Good afternoon, Mr. Pryor.
Good afternoon, sir.
ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to ask you a few questions, if I might, sir. How long had you been a limousine driver as of June 12, 1994?
For about 5 months.
Tell us, when did you first meet Miss Marsha Clark, the district attorney at the far end of the table?
The first time, I really don't remember.
Was it back in June of 1994?
Yes.
And it would be a fair statement to say you talked and gave a statement to police officers Tippin and Carr on or about June 15th, 1994. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Now, that night, you saw Mr. Simpson for at least the period 10:55 or thereabouts until you dropped him off at the, or left him at the airport there at about 11:35. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And would I be correct in assuming that what you were most concerned with that particular evening was finding out if Mr. Simpson was at home, getting him so you could get to the airport? Is that your concern?
Yes.
At that time, it wasn't so important to you, I presume, as to what cars were parked where on the street. That wasn't important to you, was it?
No, not at all.
Do you remember telling officers Tippin and Carr that you didn't recall seeing a car parked in front of the residence when you stopped near the Rockingham gate? Remember telling them that?
Yes.
In my mind, I'm right then and there, I'm saying to myself, if he could say for sure that he knew that the Bronco was there or not there, it would have given me information to the point where I could assume that maybe either Mr. Simpson was or was not at home.
Now, during this period of time, you had occasion, did you not, to see Mr. Simpson's hands, didn't you?
Yes.
In fact, you described for us that at one point you shook his hand, his right hand, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And you saw him, I think you've described for us, coming down the stairs carrying some bags with his hands, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And did you ever see any Band-Aids on his left hand, on his left knuckle, middle finger here?
No.
You didn't see any cuts on his hands that evening, did you?
No.
And you didn't see Mr. Simpson bleeding that evening, did you?
No.
Of all the evidence in this case, the biggest question I always had was about the cut on the finger. If it could have been determined that the finger was actually cut during the commission of the murders, I think that would have had an overwhelming effect on me as far as for his guilt or innocence.
After Mr. Simpson got out, and although his plane was leaving in about 10 minutes, somebody approached him and asked for an autograph?
Yes.
And did you see him accommodate that individual?
Yes, he did.
And did he sign the autograph?
Yeah. Yes.
He also took the time to ask you or to tell you to add 20% to the bill?
Yes.
There was no, all the luggage had been taken out of the car, is that correct?
Yes.
There's no blood in the back of that car, was there?
No.
No blood on the carpet of that car, was there?
No.
They never found the knife. They never found bloody clothes. They never found the shoes.
Do I think that he intentionally went there to kill her? Being that you have gloves, a hat, disguise, a weapon, chances are that's what you're going to do.
Mr. Park has told the court at sidebar, and he's told the jury as well, that he did not get a good look at the bag. His memory is somewhat vague as to what the bag looked like exactly. I mean, it could be, it couldn't be. Where does that get us? How is that relevant? And so we would object to presenting that bag to the jury. Is it their contention that the witness carried that bag on the plane? If not, then they're acting in bad faith. Why introduce it to the witness? This is supposed to be a search for the truth, and we shouldn't be trying to trick witnesses to get them to say something that might affect their credibility. It seems to be what they're trying to do.
Nobody's trying to trick anybody with all their search warrant powers and all the things they did. They've never even tried to find these bags. Just talk about it and throw all these theories up. So let's not talk about trying to trick anybody.
We shouldn't be trying to trick witnesses.
Right. I noted the objection. I sustained the objection, and unless I hear a better foundation, I've indicated that I'm sustaining.
And as usual, they're trying to give a soundbite for what might be what he hopes is going to happen. Their whole case is based upon hopes and dreams, and they're evaporating.
Nobody calls us the dream team, Mr. Cochran.
There was so much attention paid to this so-called dream team of the defense that they were constantly trying to figure out what the dream team would do to counter their argument, and they were overthinking everything.
The idea that it's very hard for the prosecutors to ever argue anything without labeling everything. The trickery comes from these vague theories that change like the weather. All we're asking to do...
Is that not a gratuitous personal attack?
I'm referring to his remark about trickery.
Stop, both of you.
This matter was brought up by the prosecution. They've made great statements. Could Mr. Darden please sit down and stop making sounds while I'm...
That's true. Why don't you have a seat, Mr. Darden?
Was I making sounds?
Yes, you were going, It's a nervous... Yes.
No, I was going,
When you sit down, no, it's that nervous twitch, so please. May I?
I thought it was,
It was, But we always said, Your Honor. Yeah. Now.
I couldn't believe it.
Okay. Now, Your Honor, may I proceed?
Yes.
You described for us earlier he was carrying some sort of a bag. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And what kind of bag was that?
It was a garment bag that resembled the Gucci bag pattern.
Let me, you've been saying Gucci pattern. Do you know the difference between Louis Vuitton and Gucci?
No.
All right, if I were, you don't, do you? Okay. I'm trying to see.
Don't look at me.
No, I wouldn't. Somebody here has one, but I... Have you ever seen those bags with those little LVs on them that are kind of brown? LV standing for Louis Vuitton?
I can't say I have.
All right. If you were to ever see any of these bags again, do you think you'd recognize them?
Yes.
Mr. Park, I want to place the defendant's 1062 before you. And why don't you just take a minute and take a look at that?
It's very similar, if not the bag.
All right. Defendant's 1063, being brought by Mr. Douglas. Do you recognize this bag at all?
No. Somewhat similar, but I don't think it's the same. It looks very similar.
All right, looks very similar?
Yes.
So this could have well been one of the black duffel bags that were out in front of the Simpson home, in front of the entranceway. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Does this look similar to any of the, either one of the black bags you saw there that particular night?
No, not that I remember.
Mr. Williams, you don't recall ever seeing Mr. Simpson anywhere near that trash can on June the 12th, do you, sir?
Yes, he was standing near the trash can.
Could O.J. Simpson have gotten rid of his blood-soaked clothes and the knife after the murders? That's what the prosecution is trying to get the jurors to believe. Next, the baggage handler who checked in Simpson's luggage takes the stand.
A little bit nervous?
Yeah.
All right. It won't be bad. Would you like some of your own?
Yeah, is the water fresh?
It's from someone else.
Can I have some water? I'm thirsty. The water out there is hot.
All right, Ms. Clark.
Sir, as of June the 12th, 1994, where were you employed?
At LAX, at American Airlines, where I'm a sky cap.
And on the date of June the 12th, 1994, did you start work at 7 p.m.?
Yes, I did.
And were you still at work at about 11:30 p.m.?
Yes, I was.
So who was pushing the luggage carrier, sir?
The Caucasian man.
And was there someone else with that young Caucasian man?
I didn't notice the other person at first. He was standing like out of my sight. When I first turned, I was facing the podium, helping the people I was helping. And then after I finished with them, I turned to my left and I asked him if he needed help. And then that was at that time that I noticed through my peripheral vision, I could see someone else standing there, and it was...
Could you see who that was?
Yes.
Who was that?
Mr. Simpson.
Is that someone you see in court today, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Can you point him out?
Mr. Simpson.
Indicating the defendant.
Thank you. All right. Now, did you personally check any of the bags for the young man or Mr. Simpson?
Yeah, I checked 2 bags.
What bags did you check?
the golf club and like hanging bag.
Was Mr. Simpson carrying anything when you saw him?
Yes, he had a bag.
What kind of bag?
Like a little duffel bag.
Okay. Can you tell us if this is this looks like the bag you saw him carrying that night?
Yes.
Can you tell us if this was the bag he was carrying that night?
I couldn't tell you if it was the bag.
Looks like.
Looks like it.
Could you tell us if it appeared to be full or empty?
It has something in it. I'm not sure what, but I mean, you know, it wasn't weighing him down or anything like that.
He had that on his shoulder?
Yes.
Did he check that bag in with you?
No.
What did he do with that bag?
He kept it with him.
Is there a trash can anywhere near your stand where you work?
Yes, just to the left of it.
The only duffel bag you saw was the one he carried in over his shoulder?
Oh, you can ask the question.
Yeah, that's the only one I saw.
Williams, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Williams, you don't recall ever seeing Mr. Simpson anywhere near that trash can on June the 12th, do you, sir?
Yes, he was standing near the trash can.
Did you see him do anything with the trash can?
No, I didn't see him do anything with the trash can.
We know that on the night of the murder, he flew to Chicago and came home, and these bloody clothes were nowhere to be found.
He's watching the trial, he gets pissed off, he calls me in the office and tells me the story. I took him to Marcia, and I said, you want to know where the shoes are or the knife? This guy saw OJ stuffing them in a trash container.
That witness was there to pick up his wife, who was a flight attendant at the same airline.
And where's that little half-moon-shaped travel bag? Nobody knows. We know what was in that travel bag. Can we prove it? No, it's gone forever. But if I'm on the jury, I want to hear what this witness has to say. You never, however, have too much evidence in a murder case, ever. You put everything on. Balls to the walls. If it doesn't go, it doesn't go. Marcia did not want to appear in bed with the LAPD in front of this jury because it was about Rodney King, it was about the LA riots, some of the most deadly riots in this city's history, in this nation's history. Nobody in that jury liked these cops.
If you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat. The witness stand and statements for your first and last names for the record.
Judge Wong, you are a retired Superior Court judge, sir?
That's correct.
Okay. And in connection with this case, you have been acting as a special master, is that right?
That is also correct.
Okay. And what is a special master, Judge?
A special master is a person who is appointed to carry out certain specific assignments.
And were you given an assignment directing you to retrieve certain items on March 28, 1995?
That is correct.
Okay. You recognize that bag?
Yes, I recognize it.
And you covered that bag yesterday?
Yes.
From where, sir?
This was from the second story master bedroom. It was in a closet.
And was that bag pointed out to you by Mr. Kardashian?
Yes.
I was producing a segment for a late-night news show called Premier Story. It was supposed to be a look at what was going on outside O.J. Simpson's mansion the day after the murders. We caught Robert Kardashian slipping off with O.J. Simpson's garment bag, and that bag was bulging with Simpson's stuff.
What was in that garment bag? No one ever knows. And while the garment bag was brought into court, it was brought into court empty. So why not ask Robert Kardashian? Well, interestingly enough, Robert Kardashian was a member of O.J. Simpson's legal team.
He knew me as an attorney from the day we met, and in fact, we'd always done business deals together, and in those deals, most of the time I acted as his attorney. So from his standpoint, I don't think it mattered whether I was active or inactive. As far as the client knew, I was an attorney.
He was there primarily because he'd known OJ for so long and knew a lot of the little facts and details that we would need to know in just terms of history.
These are some of the 2,000 to 3,000 letters we get every day for OJ. He reads as many as we could get to him. We get a lot of Bibles, we get a lot of books, a lot of encouraging cards. Some people will send in money, some will send little tokens of affection.
I knew Nicole from the first time OJ met her, and so I've lost a friend also. I am on his side because I know he didn't do it, but also I want to find out who did do it.
Robert Kardashian was kind of an enigma because he was quote unquote part of the defense team, but he never spoke. He never made an argument. He never questioned witnesses. He was there as OJ Simpson's support. And we always, though, wondered about him.
As we all know, Robert Kardashian, had been a friend of OJ's before Kris Kardashian had sold her daughter's sex tapes. And before Keeping Up with the Kardashians, that was their claim to fame, is that they were friends of the Simpsons.
And I think that if you didn't have O.J. Simpson, you wouldn't have the Kardashians.
You know, everybody always thinks Nicole is like part of this Kardashian clan where it's like fame and fortune and fanciness. And you got to keep in mind, 25 years ago, we didn't have what we see today. We didn't have the housewives. We didn't have, Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Feeling a lot better now. Thank you.
The media frenzy was off the bat crazy. O.J. Simpson, obviously, at the time, was a big celebrity. And from then on, it was the biggest story in the world, it seemed like.
His appetite had been whetted. And once you turn on that faucet, it's tough to turn it off. I think it's a weird progression. And we're kind of, it's everything, I think you could trace everything back to O.J. Simpson. That's when society began to fall apart in some strange way.
I recently found an old reporter's notebook of the beginning of the case. And I realized that I had spelled Kardashian wrong. So it was like Innocent Times, didn't know how to spell Kardashian.
The O.J. Simpson trial is called the trial of the century for a reason. I think it's more complex than people talk about it. And I think there's always ripe for discovery, which is why you see so many people still doing work around it.
There's cameras in the courtroom. All the lawyers play to the cameras and going to draw out their arguments. This is all about the cameras.
Raise your right hand, please. You can solemnly swear that the testimony you make given in the class now speaking before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
DENNISFUNG.
Cameras in the courtroom affects testimony. People that were testifying in the case had never been in front of a jury in their lives, and they're testifying live in front of 50 million people.
What time did you arrive at the Rockingham location? I arrived there at 7:10 in the morning.
What are they thinking about? How they look, and what am I going to say? I don't want to say the wrong thing. It affects testimony. Testimony is evidence. It affects the outcome of this case.
I felt the glove evidence was very, very significant. The glove evidence in and of itself dispelled any notion of conspiracy.
Could you now open the box for us and describe what you're doing for the record? Thank you. I am using a pocket knife to cut the tape along the top seam of the box. I'm opening up the box. There's a bag within with the item number 9. Is there anything about the packaging that you recognize? Yes. In black, I see the item number that I wrote on it and my initials.
And is that what you assigned to the number, the glove that was found on the south side of the Rockingham location?
Yes, it is.
You got 3 types of blood on the glove at Rockingham, both victims and Simpson. That pretty much ties them together. That's damning evidence. There's nothing exculpatory about that blood.
I'm cutting along the bottom edge of the bag. And within the bag is a glove.
And does that appear to be the item that you retrieved from the Rockingham location?
Yes, it is.
All right.
It was a very unique glove. And the fact that we had the left-hand glove found at the Bundy crime scene and a blood-saturated right-hand glove found beneath the air conditioning platform at Simpson's Rockingham house, I felt was very key evidence.
Now, when you saw this item prior to you collecting it, whichever technique you used, what did the item appear like?
The item appeared to have some brownish, reddish stains.
You testify that, in your opinion, it was more likely to be dry than wet?
Yes.
Why do you think that?
My experience with bloodied clothing and their appearance lent me to that estimation of whether it was wet or dry. It appeared to me to be dry.
When you first glanced at it, how shiny did it appear?
There were just some areas that had a sheen to them.
You're saying that Detective Furman volunteered and he rushed down that south walkway. He was the fellow that went down there and he picked up the evidence.
At my request.
Counsel, you want to state your appearances for the record?
Robert Glazier, Mr. Simpson. You failed. A fire check.
Now, you indicated on direct examination that you were the person that went back and recovered the glove, item number 9.
Yes.
And you were the person that was doing all this investigating on the walkway leading up to item number 9.
Overruled.
Investigation in what sense?
Well, you were looking for red stains, you were looking for fibers, you were looking for clues along the south walkway leading up to the glove.
Yes. I went by myself, and Detective Furman went on the other side of the fence.
So, in other words, you were walking down the south walkway and Detective Furman was walking on the other side of the fence. And then it was Detective Furman that pointed out this blue object on the other side of the fence?
He went over to help me collect it so I wouldn't have to walk all the way around.
But wait a second, you're the criminalist, right?
Yes.
And you're saying that Detective Furman volunteered and he rushed down that south walkway. He walked down that south walkway, right?
I don't know if he rushed or walked.
All right. He was the fellow that went down there and he picked up the evidence.
At my request.
When you're investigating a case or presenting a case to a jury, you want to bring it in different phases. First, you've got motive, because a jury wants to know, why would this person want to kill someone? In this case, you're talking about domestic violence, jealousy, clear potential motives. Then you've got opportunity, and this is where the timeline comes into play. Did that suspect, O.J. Simpson, have an opportunity to commit this crime? Then finally, you've got to move into the evidence phase, where you've got to link that suspect to the crime itself. And in this case, in the O.J. Simpson case, it's all about the blood.
We're about to enter the technical phase of the case. Let me just address this first point, because I think it's an absolutely essential one. And it's one that highlights the way the prosecution is proceeding here, that I think has been unfair and abusive in terms of way DNA evidence ought to be presented, and a matter that I think is of extraordinary consequence in terms of how this kind of evidence is going to be presented to juries from this point forward, not just in this courtroom, I think, but across the country, indeed across the world.
It was really new evidence at the time. People don't remember in the mid-90s, it was DNA evidence was pretty new. We didn't have all sorts of CSI shows, and I don't think the public was as familiar with DNA evidence.
What we waived was we waived our right to attack outside the presence of the jury all DNA test results that had been done up to that point, that we had received results from.
We had ongoing DNA testing. So that was an evolving state of affairs through the first few months of the prosecution.
They seem to be taking the position that they are free, because of our withdrawal of the motion, to present any DNA evidence in any form. They have all the people here in California that have been from the very beginning trying to engineer the admission of this evidence in favor of the prosecution.
The defense team had every intention, regardless of any kind of ruling by you, of parading all sorts of unreliable hearsay in through cross-examination of the prosecution witnesses.
DNA evidence is statistical, and you should not be able to present this evidence without statistics. Now, the prosecution has already done that in the opening statement, where Ms. Clark went on saying, here's a bloodstain match. Here's a bloodstain match.
Matches the defendant. Matches the defendant. Matches the defendant. Matches the defendant.
It's not like they don't know what they're doing, Your Honor. They have all the people here in California that have been from the very beginning trying to engineer the admission of this evidence in favor of the prosecution, the proponents of it, and they know the law.
Ms. Clark never misrepresented anything in her presentation. If they really are going to call him, perhaps they get him in a detox center for a period of time, so that when he testifies, I won't be able to ask him that.
More of the same. Wait.
No,
wait.
You know.
If you want to come in here and talk about science, well, you better be prepared to be put under a microscope and have your entire character subject to attack.
He'll be a blip on the radar screen. He's not going to sit up there and testify, because he has nothing meaningful to add about the actual reliability of our test results.
Would the Nobel Prize Committee have taken back Dr. Mullis's Nobel Prize had they suspected that he'd used LSD when he lived in Berkeley? I doubt it.
The last time I looked in the California Evidence Code, we didn't have an exception for Nobel Prize winners. He'll be a blip on the radar screen. He's not going to sit up there and testify.
The jury has now heard about Simpson's movements on the night of the murders. But are they buying the prosecution's version of events? Coming up, blood evidence takes center stage in the trial of the century. That's next on OJ25. I'm Roger Cossack.